Even to this day, the bots in Quake 3 are some of the most advanced ever put in a video game. They can realistically react to anything the player throws at them, and will use strategies and work together in order to try and win objectives. This makes for riveting multiplayer experiences if you have friends to play with especially, and shows just how transformative games with good AI can be. Personally, I really hope in the future systems and AI-driven design like this are a focus in game development, but we will see. Regardless, for some time now, the Quake 3 bots have been regarded as some of the best, but in the early 2010s, this recognition was about to transform into a crazy urban legend. During this period online, a player gave an extremely fascinating tale, which spread like a wildfire. According to him, for the past 4 years, he had set up a continuous 16-player deathmatch in which every combatant was a Quake 3 bot, and simply left it running. When he eventually remembered to check in on his experiment 4 years later, what he found was astonishing. In the chat logs, which the Quake 3 bots do actually use in-game, a conversation from years ago was unearthed which showed one of the bots specifically telling the others it was time to stop fighting. If no one kills anyone, it said, then no one does, and everyone wins. Inside the lobby, rather than finding chaos and carnage, this player was met with an army of bots simply standing idly, refusing to fight. In the event that any human player joined the match, they would be immediately descended upon and killed gruesomely in order to maintain peace, thus resuming the AI pacifist standoff with rocket launchers in hand once again. The story quickly broke into the mainstream, being featured in articles like Huffington Post and Forbes, and had the entire Quake and gaming community freaking out. Sadly though, as with most urban legends like this one, the entire thing was fake. The original poster on 4chan, who included screenshots of the bot's conversations, had fabricated everything, and some technical analysis afterwards proved that while Quake 3 bots were sophisticated, they were by no means capable of what was described. The funny thing is though, nowadays I could totally see something like this happening. We have real-world examples of large language models like ChatGPT or Google Gemini running similar experiments but actually getting outcomes like this. And it isn't too far-fetched to imagine what before was just one big joke is slowly becoming reality, an urban legend that human ingenuity has brought to life. And it makes you wonder, maybe somewhere out there were or are signs of intelligent machines giving rise to thought in games. After all, games are often one of the biggest testing beds for technical innovation. Famously, for example, much of the research that gave rise to, say, ChatGPT came from the Google AlphaGo team, and one of the biggest projects they were working on was an AI that could play StarCraft. Or what about Brutus from Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor, another AI mystery I covered in my previous mysteries video, which I highly recommend you guys check out after this. So maybe there really are some sentient bots somewhere out there. If you've ever played the Civilization series, you know two things are always true. One, the community hates the newest game and begins to love the last game that previously was hated on once the new one releases. And two, Gandhi will nuke you the second he has the chance. This second revelation specifically comes from the very first game, where an urban legend of sorts was born that told the tale of a pacifist Gandhi that was anything but. According to legend, in the title, Gandhi was given the lowest aggression rating possible, a 1 out of 255. However, if the player chose to become a democracy, it would lower all Civ aggression ratings behind the scenes by 2. This caused an underflow error in the code of Gandhi, which reset his aggression back to 255, and resulted in him nuking everything and anything in sight until the entire world was engulfed in flames. For years, this rumor was just accepted as fact, and even was put into future titles like Civilization 5 as a meme where Gandhi was coded from the ground up to prefer using nukes. However, in 2020, the creator of the Civilization series, Sid Meier, released a memoir in which he explained that nuclear Gandhi was actually a bug that never really existed. Rather, players had just hallucinated and made up stories that simply hit the zeitgeist. This revelation caused quite a stir in the community, as many vehemently claimed that no, Gandhi really was a maniac even in the original game, and especially in Civ 2 and 3. Even ask avid players nowadays, and many will swear that Gandhi has always been bloodthirsty. And in my opinion, as Jeff Bezos famously has said, when you have a conflict between anecdotes and data, trust the anecdote. I know that Sid said Gandhi didn't love nukes, but there are just too many people online, too many old forum posts, and too much commotion for this myth not to have some legs. As they say, where there is smoke, there's fire. And in this case, I think it's undeniable that in many of the early renditions of civilization, something spooky was going on with Gandhi. But in all honesty, the real answer is probably that Gandhi was aggressive in the original Civ, but that it was because all the computer-controlled characters were in the first game. And Gandhi even being slightly less so likely led to memes online, since he is usually seen as one of the most peaceful leaders in human history. This would perfectly explain how the urban legend was born and why it has persisted even with the game designer himself denying it. But regardless, if you do happen to find yourself in a game of Civ, make sure to watch your back. The early 2000s was an interesting time for games. We had websites like Newgrounds, Miniclip, and Addicting Games, which offered thousands of Flash titles including Line Rider and The Last Stand, some of my favorites as a kid. But included in these two were a whole host of other sites dedicated to making your own cute little pet and living in a world with other players, like Neopets or Club Penguin. But one of these that was somewhat lesser known was a web browser game called Webkinz. Dominating the arena from 2008 to 2009, this online world was full of adorable plush animals that you could buy at stores in real life that included codes that allowed you to play in the fake world. It was a genius move at the time and brought in a whole host of children that wanted to see what their friends had too. But as with almost all children's games, things eventually turned for the worst, and in this case, the sinister. Rumors online began to spread about a so-called serial killer in-game, a murdering menace who was described as an all-black, red, or yellow penguin with glowing bloodshot eyes. As children would walk around in-game with their pets, this mysterious figure would peek out of the shadows and brutally murder animals right in front of them, including slitting their throats as blood covered the walls. This myth and urban legend began to grow and grow inside the game's circles, and as more players online, especially children, became afraid of the Webkinz Killer, they started to share information on what it might be, what times it would come out, and what was even happening. Theorists online came up with lots of different speculation, including a disgruntled employee, a hacker group who thought it was funny, and even rival workers at companies like Neopets who were trying to cause the downfall of one of their biggest competitors. Some users online even tried to provide proof of a virus that was being spread in the game that allowed for explicit images to be shown, somewhat similar to, say, Sad Satan. But every single one of these explanations never had any full proof, and to this day, the entire fiasco looks like nothing more than a hoax. Meaning for potentially years, thousands of children lived online in fear of a literal boogeyman, an evil entity that wasn't even real. And this wouldn't be the first time where a children's game has dark secrets that turn out to be false. But when you compare that to, say, real-world games with predators like, say, Club Penguin or Roblox, it's actually a pretty tame myth. And yet, there's a small handful in the community that to this day still claim that the Webkinz Killer was a real thing, and that it may be even extended into the real world, with the man stalking families who bought Webkinz codes at grocery stores and slaughtered not only their animals, but them too.